All right, so today we are really diving deep, like really deep.
Deep into the hangar.
Haha, kind of. We are taking a deep dive into the world of aircraft maintenance regulations.
The riveting stuff, right?
You know it. Specifically, those fascinating federal aviation regulations.
As FRs,
Exactly. We're talking Part 91.
the heart and soul of keeping aircraft safe.
And safe they are, thanks to these rules. Whether you're an owner, a pilot, or just someone who likes to look up at a clear sky.
These regs matter.
100%. So Section 91.401, right off the bat, what's the deal?
Well, it basically says these rules, they apply to every U.S. registered civil aircraft. Doesn't matter if it's soaring over the Sahara or parked in Peoria.
So my plane, your plane, that little Cessna down at the airfield?
All under the same FAR umbrella.
Global reach. I like it. But rules, well, they're just words on paper, unless, well,
Someone's there to follow them.
exactly. And that's where 91.403 swoops in. This section's all about responsibility.
And it's crystal clear. The owner, the operator, they are ultimately responsible for keeping that bird airworthy,
Airworthy meaning,
safe to fly. But it's way more than just a walk around before you fire up the engine.
right, there's got to be a system.
There is. We're talking adhering to a whole bunch of regulations,
Yeah.
including this little thing called Part 39.
Part 39, ominous.
It is. Because Part 39, that's where you find the airworthiness directives.
Uh-oh, directives. Sounds serious.
They are. Think of them like the FAA's way of sending out a safety bulletin.
Like a recall, but for planes.
Exactly. Something pops up, some potential risk, boom, AD gets issued.
So everyone knows, okay, got to fix this, got to check that.
Yep. Keeps everyone on their toes, make sure those planes are up to snuff. But it's not just about following those big rules.
Mm-hmm.
This section, 91.403, it gets into the weeds a little, like when someone wants to modify their aircraft.
Modify, you mean like add, I don't know, extra cup holders, a
Yeah.
fancy new radio.
Oh, think bigger.
Mhm.
Maybe a new engine, different wings, something structural. You can't just go full DIY on a plane.
There's got to be oversight, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's where those supplemental type certificates come in. STCs.
STCs, break it down for me.
Okay, so let's say you want to make a change that goes beyond what the manufacturer originally intended, right?
Right, like adding those racing stripes I've always dreamed of.
Sure, but think safety related. You need an STC. It's basically the FAA saying, yep, this modification, it's been reviewed, it's safe.
So you're not compromising the whole aircraft just because you wanted, I don't know, a sunroof.
Precisely. And here's the thing about 91.403. It's very clear that the owner, the operator, they can't just pass the buck on this.
So no saying, oh, the mechanic said it was fine.
Nope. They need to be involved, make sure those mods are done right, that they're safe, and that they meet all the regulations.
Serious business. It's not just a hobby, owning an aircraft. It's a responsibility.
Big time. And that responsibility, it really comes into focus when we talk about the day-to-day stuff, the maintenance.
Okay, let's talk maintenance.
Okay.
That's where 91.405 comes in, right?
That's the one.
Maintenance required. Sounds pretty straightforward to me.
It does. But like anything in aviation, the devil's in the details. This section, it's all about making that responsibility we talked about into, concrete action.
So what's the golden rule of aircraft maintenance, according to 91.405?
Documentation.
No paperwork.
You said it. Section 91.405B, it says anytime any work, and I mean any work, is done on that aircraft.
Got to write it down.
It's not a suggestion, it's the law. Big or small, those records must be updated.
And I'm guessing we're not talking about scribbling on the back of a napkin here.
You know it. These records are proof that things were done and done right.
So, like, I changed the oil, I replaced the light bulb, it all gets logged.
Exactly. It's not about ticking boxes. It's about building a history.
A history of the aircraft, so anyone looking at these records down the line.
They know exactly what's been done and when. It's like a plane's medical record.
Now, I'm seeing here in 91.405C something about equipment being allowed to be inoperative. That doesn't seem very airworthy, does it?
Yes. Acceptable inoperability. It's a thing.
So you're saying I can fly a plane with a broken coffee maker?
Well, maybe not the coffee maker, but you get the idea. There are some instruments and equipment that, while important, they might not ground the whole plane if they're temporarily out of commission.
Temporarily being the key word there.
Absolutely. You can't just ignore it. Section 91.213,
Mm-hmm.
that's where they get into the weeds about what can be in op-em for how long. But 91.405C, the big takeaway is you've got to address it.
So no postponing the inevitable.
Not when it comes to aircraft maintenance.
Yeah, makes sense to me. And to make it crystal clear what's working and what's not, we've got 91.405D.
Ah, yes, the inoperative placard.
Those little signs you always see.
Important little finds. It's a visual cue for everyone, pilots, maintenance, that something's not quite right.
Transparency is key.
100%.
So we talked about keeping up with maintenance, but what about when you need something a little more in-depth than just routine stuff?
You're talking about inspections.
Right, like getting your aircraft its yearly physical.
Exactly. And that is where Section 91.409 comes in. This is a big one. It all starts with that annual inspection.
Annual, so once a year, no matter what.
No matter what. Section 91.409A makes that crystal clear. Can't operate an aircraft unless it's had this inspection within the past 12 calendar months. No excuses.
It's like a birthday for your plane. But instead of cake, it gets a thorough checkup.
A very thorough checkup. I mean, we're talking nose to tail, every system, every component, engine, propeller, every little bit and piece. We check it all against the manufacturer's specs. No cutting corners here.
That's serious business, but I'm seeing here another inspection in 91.409A2, an inspection for an airworthiness certificate. Now, why would you need an inspection even more intense than the annual?
This one's all about establishing that baseline airworthiness. It's required in a few different situations, like when an aircraft is first certified, or if there's been a major repair, or, anytime there's a reason to believe the aircraft might not meet those safety standards.
So like the most stringent test an aircraft can go through.
You got it. It's the gold standard.
High bar. And I'm seeing here in 91.409 that if any inspection is done instead of the annual, it has to be done by someone who's qualified to do the annuals anyway.
Exactly. Got to maintain those standards. No shortcuts when it comes to safety.
Makes sense. Now, what about this 91.409B? It mentions aircraft used for hire, commercially or for flight instruction. What's the deal there?
You're sharp to catch that. When a plane's being used like that, constantly going up and down, training new pilots.
It's got to take more of a beating than just the casual weekend flight.
You got it. More wear and tear means more frequent inspections. That's where the 100-hour inspection comes in.
Every 100 hours. So like a checkup between birthdays.
Exactly. We're talking 100 hours of time in service, basically any time that engine is running. An extra layer of safety, especially important when you might have paying passengers or students on board.
You don't want to mess around with that. Okay, so now I'm really curious about this. Progressive inspections. 91.409D. What's the story there?
Progressive inspections. They're a little different, kind of a newer approach. Instead of grounding the aircraft for that big annual inspection, this spreads it out over time, like breaking a big project into smaller chunks.
Bite-sized inspections.
You could say that. It has a lot of advantages. Less downtime, aircraft stays in the air more, and you can address those maintenance needs in a more structured way.
Sounds efficient. But there's always a but, isn't there?
Well, you can't just go willy-nilly with it. Section 91.409D is really clear.
Yeah.
Structure and oversight are key. You need someone qualified calling the shots, someone with the experience and the authorizations.
Makes sense. You don't want just anyone deciding what to inspect and when.
Exactly. You also need a solid plan, a detailed inspection procedures manual. It's like the rule book, laying out every single step of every single inspection.
Yeah.
Consistency is key.
So no matter who's doing the inspection.
They're all following the same playbook.
I like it. And of course, you need the right tools and facilities. You can't do a thorough inspection with just a screwdriver and a prayer.
It's true. Proper facilities are a must. And with all these smaller inspections, you've got to stay organized. That's where that good old-fashioned documentation comes in. 91.409D says someone's got to be in charge of scheduling, got to make sure everyone involved has access to the plan.
Transparency is key. Okay, now let's say you've been doing the progressive inspections and then decide to go back to the annual. Can you just hit the reset button? Pretend those other inspections never happened.
Nope. Section 91.409H is very clear on that one.
Yeah.
You've got to factor in all that time, all those cycles that were already accumulated under the old program when figuring out the new inspection schedule.
So no loopholes. Got to keep that safety record squeaky clean. Which brings us, I think, to a topic we all love to hate, maintenance records. Section 91.417, get ready for some serious paperwork.
Oh yeah, buckle up. This is the nitty-gritty.
Back again. Deep dive into aircraft maintenance regs. Whew, we've covered a lot of ground, haven't we?
We really have. From inspecting every nut and bolt to, browning in paperwork, it's a lot.
It is. Makes you realize it's not as simple as just, kicking the tires and lighting the fires.
More like inspecting the tires and meticulously logging the fire.
Exactly. But all of it, those inspections, those records, it all comes back to one thing.
Safety. That's the name of the game.
100%. And as we wrap up our time with FR Part 91, I keep coming back to this one word.
Oh, let me guess. Responsibility.
You know it. Because as we've seen, it's not just on the pilot's shoulders, it's not just on the mechanic's shoulders.
It's shared, from the folks who build the planes to the folks who fly them and everyone in between.
Everyone's got skin in the game, and these regulations, as nitpicky as they might seem sometimes,
They're the guardrails. They keep everyone on track, working together towards that common goal.
safer skies for everybody.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, I think it's time to bring this deep dive in for a landing. Any final words of wisdom for our listeners before we taxi back to the gate?
You know, I always say knowledge is power.
Hmm.
And when it comes to aviation, that knowledge, it could really make a difference. So keep learning, keep asking questions, and stay curious.
Words to live by. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey into the world of aircraft maintenance regulations. Until next time, happy flying.